Welcome, everybody, to Dear Romance Writer, where three writers who always deliver happily ever afters offer very questionable advice for all of your relationship, work, and life problems. I'm Avery Flynn.
I'm Roan Parrish.
And I'm Zio Axelrod. We have a great show for you today with debut author Timothy Janovsky. Welcome, Timothy. Yay!
Thank you.
And
Thanks for having me.
congratulations on your release.
Yes.
Thank you very much.
So tell everybody about yourself, about the book, and all your good news.
Yeah. So
I just got my copy yesterday. It just came yesterday, so it's sitting here on the shelf.
Pretty.
Oh, yeah.
It's such a good book, you guys. It's such a hug. Like we were talking about Heartstopper last week. Like if you loved Heartstopper, you will love this book. It's so good.
Good. It's funny, when I was reading the graphic novels of Heartstopper, I didn't really see the connection, and then I watched the Netflix series and I was like, oh, soft boys falling in love, that's what this book is. Some lovely bookstagrammers tagged me in their rewatches. They were like, I'm gonna go reread the book. I'm like, thank you, that really means a lot to me. But yeah, so my name's Timothy Janovsky. I am a self-proclaimed multidisciplinary storyteller. I write queer rom-coms, and my debut novel, Never Been Kissed, hit shelves May 3rd. And it's basically to all the boys I've loved before, male romance, a little bit older, so it's new adult, and takes place at a drive-in movie theater. And then I'm also the author of the upcoming, in October, You're a Mean One, Matthew Prince, which is a Christmas male forced proximity small town romance, and only one bunk bed, which is my favorite part of the book.
Oh my god, that hit so many of my little love tropes. Yes, forced proximity. Only one bunk bed. That one's new to me, but I think I will love it.
That was one of my favorites to write, and it's great for if you're a fan of Schitt's Creek. It kind of has a Schitt's Creaky kind of hook to it. So if you enjoyed that series and you're missing it like I am, I hope the book kind of feels Heartstopper and Schitt's Creek. So if you're fans of those things, come find my books.
Seriously. Yeah, I got it. You sent me an ARC. You were really sweet to send me an ARC months ago. And I think I've read it twice already. I've Never Been Kissed. And it's just such a hug of a book. You just fall in love with these characters. And Roan, it's set at a drive-in movie theater. And it's save the movie theater. Oh my God, it's so up your alley. God. So yeah.
Yes, I can't wait. I'm so excited to read it. I actually it came out yesterday of when we are filming, and yesterday was my lovely girlfriend's birthday, and so I was completely offline, and then when I signed on this morning I was like, I missed the freaking anyway. Congratulations, and I cannot wait to read it.
Thanh you so much.
I love this.
Well,
and if you guys are listening rather than watching, either jump over to the YouTube so you can see the beautiful cute covers, or go look them up. Google is your friend, for the most part, depending on what you search.
Yeah, the cover artist Monique Amy, who's has done a lot of romance book covers recently. Just I don't know how she does it, but really just captures characters so well in her illustrations, and it just especially seeing the You're a Mean One Matthew Prince cover, I was like, oh my gosh, I don't know how they crawled inside my head and figured that out, but it's exactly, and I couldn't be happier.
It's a gift.
Yeah,
I love that.
That's awesome. Well, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me.
Super excited to have you. We are listeners, we are recording a day early this week than we normally do, because I am off to go pick up the eldest child from college. Yay! Ooh. So we're outside of DC. My daughter's going to college in Wisconsin this year, and I was going to do originally the Midwest thing, where Thursday I drive the 13 hours to Wisconsin. We pack her up, and then we leave Friday morning and drive the 13 hours back. I know. and then, like a dumbass, I remembered that I had all these miles that I haven't used because we haven't been traveling. So now I am flying out, and then we're driving back. So not quite as painful. I am loving that. I have traveled a couple of times since COVID, but not too much. How about you guys? What are your travel loves, travel hates, pre-COVID? Post-COVID, where are you at with your travel fun?
I love to travel, and it has been the thing that I have missed the most since COVID. I haven't been on a plane since before COVID. I don't think I will be in the near future because they just lifted all the mask mandates. which is a huge bummer, but I love a road trip. So, I mean, 13 hours there one day and 13 hours back the next sounds like a
that's
plan.
ugly.
That sounds like a plan that I would make. And then whoever was doing it with me would be like, absolutely not. Recalibrate your expectations. But I love a road trip. I find that like a train or car or bus, like I love traversing space visibly. I feel like the speed of like moving through a landscape.
That is a phrase that only you would ever utter. I love traversing space visibly.
Well, you know, I mean, on a plane you can still see it, but it's like so fat, you're up above, you know what I mean? But on a train or a car, it's like when you can actually look out and see it, I feel like it's really a creative space for me, because it's like you're kind of in a zone out space, because the road, like it's repetitive, but also I feel like my brain like speeds up to the speed of the vehicle, and I don't know, it just does weird things to my brain. I love it.
Oh, that sounds cool though. That's a good way of putting it. I mean, I remember taking a road trip. The first time I went to Scotland, we drove from Southwest England up to Scotland. You can see the landscape changing, like visibly see it changing. You think it's the same rock, like it's not going to change that much, but it really does. So yeah.
No.
But I'm with you. I haven't been on a plane. Actually, the last flight I took was Avery when we went to Coastal Magic. And I remember coming back home. That was February of 2020. So it was like right before everything locked down. And I remember coming back from where were we, North Carolina? Yeah, the before time. When I think we were in North Carolina, I was coming back through the airport and everyone was like coughing and sneezing. And I was like, wow, flu season is really bad this year. Didn't think anything of it. Then we got home and of course everything went nuts. But yeah, I haven't been on a plane yet. I just booked my first flight for July for Book Bonanza. And that was like a traumatic experience. And I'm like, who's going to sit next to me? How many masks do I need to wear? You know? But we have been on road trips.
Somebody's iPhone video that goes viral because
like who's gonna freak out on the plane and have a mask, see someone in a mask and freak out. But we are driving. We have taken a couple of road trips during the lockdown and the pandemic, and we're doing another one at the end of this month for a wedding. So far that's been it. But I do miss, especially traveling to other countries. That was like my jam. So I miss that a lot.
Yeah,
soon.
I definitely miss that too. My partner and I met in college, and he was graduating right at the start of the pandemic. So missed that final chunk of the semester, and no graduation, no nothing. And we were supposed to take a trip to London, Amsterdam, and Antwerp, and I think one other place. So we had Expedia, like we had hotels booked, we had shows we were about to see, and that's all kind of just sitting in vouchers now until we feel comfortable. And thankfully they're good until 2024, so we can get our European adventure in when we want to. But so those have been kind of sitting in limbo, but we did get to take a road trip to Provincetown last summer, which was really nice. Zio, I think you went like pretty much right after I was there, because you posted a photo at the bookstore that I had been at. We spent like awesome. 5 days. I love it there.
Such a book nerd thing to do, to be like, I went to a whole new place and I saw so many cool bookstores. Like I can't, even when I know they're going to be bad, like I love the Outer Banks, I love you and miss you. And there's an indie bookstore there, and they are just not romance friendly. Like there's like 6 books, but I still go in every time we go down there because it's a bookstore. So of course I go. But I love that.
P-Town in particular is nice because their bookstores cater obviously to queer readers, and so you can go in there and expect to find, like, even if it's not romance heavy, you can find like the gamut of queer books. And I think that's very cool. There were 2 indie bookstores there when I was there last, but one of them may have unfortunately closed due to COVID. So I'm not sure if that one's still open.
I don't remember. I think, didn't they have like weird hours, or they were doing something, some sort of transition thing. Yeah.
They were looking for a new buyer, I think. Like they wanted someone to buy the store, because there was a sign up. It was like, do you want a bookstore? And I'm thinking like, I'll live my Kathleen Kelly fantasy. Yeah, I'll buy the bookstore.
Yes. You look at Roan, like, yes.
Oh my gosh, I was actually
I don't know any like reader/writer that's not a dream. Really. Yeah.
Right.
I would love that.
Roan, you were there after me?
Yeah, I was there for Halloween, and for like the week of Halloween. And I had never been to Cape Cod or Provincetown before, and it's like my girlfriend's favorite place. And we went and stayed with a friend, and his parents have like a house there, like a little vacation home, and we were so lucky that they weren't going to be there, so we stayed there, and it was like 20 minutes from Provincetown, and so we actually got tattoos in Provincetown on Halloween, or we had like decided that's what we were going to do, but then there was a nor'easter the day before or 2 days before, and the entire island was like, or peninsula had lost power, and we were already in Provincetown because she had her tattoo appointment at a certain time, and the place was closed obviously, and there was power out in all of Provincetown, and there was one place that was like this pizza place that had a generator that was open, and so it was like being in like a 1950s kind of neighborhood where like everyone came to the pizza place because it had power, and they had a transistor radio, and they were like radioing from the Coast Guard to be like, all right, well, we just heard from John down at the corner of blank and blank, and it was so charming, and I didn't even care that like we were soaking wet and couldn't get any food or anything except pizza over and over, because it was, yeah.
I can't decide if I want to read that as a romance or as a horror. You could go like either way with that. Maybe you
could do horror romance.
Horror romance, yeah. It felt like a romance. It was very sweet and picturesque and lovely.
Yeah,
there
I was going to say
one pizza shop.
I think they filmed part of the last season of American Horror Story in Provincetown, so they know horror.
Oh yeah, well, because Ryan Murphy and his husband have a house there on the water. Yeah, and they filmed it in some places there, and we actually went to the restaurant that was the bar restaurant in this season, and it's like it looks exactly like it. It was very wild.
I had no idea. I would have checked that out when I was there.
Next time.
Yeah.
Well, speaking of all the things that we can't do recently, let's talk about what we can do, which is give some advice, maybe. I hope.
Maybe.
So we're moving on to our letter. This one is from Dear Hoopers, what is that? Who chose this letter?
I did, and it's some random site that I found, but it had some interesting letters there, so I chose one of them.
Is it basketball related? That's what I think of when I think of Hoopers.
I think it has to do with the area that this place is from. It seems very like localized. It seems like a localized. Could be an Indiana thing or something. I don't know.
Got it.
Those are Hoosiers.
Yeah.
Sorry.
I know they're Hoosiers, but I'm saying, but it's all. I know it's Hoosiers.
But it's basketball season.
It's basketball, so
okay. Okay. Anyway, none of us sport apparently.
I've seen the trailer for the film.
Yes.
It's a good movie. It is a good movie. Watch it. Sorry, I married a very sports person, so of course I've seen that movie 400 times.
It is a good movie. Okay, on to the advice. Ever since first dating, our relationship has been followed by a nasty shadow in the shape of my partner's ex-girlfriend. Their on-off relationship of 10 years ended very badly. Since then, she's befriended my partner's two sisters and manipulated them against our relationship. For months, we endured 2 a.m. phone calls, texts, and his ex showing up at his door. Her texts have made it very clear that she thinks one day she and my partner will get back together. We tried to reconcile with his sisters, but all they were interested in was defending their friend, to the point where my partner decided the best thing to do was to cut all of these women from his life. This solution obviously makes any family event painfully awkward, as the sisters will not speak to either of us, while the rest of the family blames my partner for breaking up the family, despite his best effort to resolve things. What makes this whole situation more difficult is that my partner is extremely close with his ex's family. He's even best man at her brother's wedding. My partner and I have an incredible relationship, and he's already made it clear that he wants to marry me and start a family, but I'm worried this woman will inevitably ruin that. She's been hospitalized several times due to her mental health, so I'm always on tenterhooks waiting for her next move, to the point I'm obsessed with what she's doing and constantly bring her up in conversation. The looming prospect of a wedding filled with her and her relatives has brought my feelings to the surface and is proving too much for me. What can we do that will remove her poison from our lives for good? Signed, Stalked by my partner's ex-girlfriend. And I want to just loop back to the beginning, because I feel like
please go watch the video and watch Timothy's face. Please.
Well, and it took me like half the letter to realize who was whom in this letter. So
I should have gone through and put that in there, because they didn't do that in the beginning.
Yeah, I'm just gonna reread the first sentence so that we can all get it. Okay, so the person writing is their partner is a man, and he has an ex-girlfriend who is has befriended his two sisters and manipulated them, and calls the partner and his current partner at 2 a.m. and does all these things. So we've got
sorts of stalkery things.
So we've got the letter writer, her partner, their partner, we don't know gender, letter writer, their partner, his two sisters, his ex, and her whole
his
family.
ex's family. Yeah.
And his family.
And his family. Yeah.
Okay, I know this is gonna sound like totally cheeky, but move. I mean, this sounds so much like a small town. Like, unless you want to deal with this head on, which really is the adult way to deal with it, your only other option at this point in time is moving, because you guys are so interwoven. Yeah, we're going to go with interwoven. Today's episode is brought to you by Dr. Seuss. So we are interwoven at this point in time. It's like, it's very small town. As somebody who is from a very small town, this gives me heebie-jeebie flashbacks. So but seriously though, it sounds like this is stalkery, and not that you should ever joke about stalker, but it's not light stalkery. This is serious stalkery stuff. If they are not documenting with police, not that I would expect the cops to do anything, but they should at least be documenting with the police.
The calls and the texts and the sisters is what really bothers me. Like, that's, I don't know what relationship this person's partner has with his sisters, but if they are siding with his ex over him, that's a whole separate issue there. This is like, obviously he's in another relationship, he's committed to this relationship, he's already talking marriage and kids, and yet there's something really toxic going on there. So I think Avery's point of like moving away from this, even if it takes you away from your family physically, like, it feels like that's the right move if you want this relationship to remain healthy, and yourself, your mental health to remain healthy, because this whole situation with this person, what she's brewing over in his family is so toxic. Like, it's
and not everyone can move legit. True, and not everybody would want to move. All of those things. But if moving is not an option or in your cards, really at that point in time, you need to document with police. You need to make sure and keep just straight up documentation of incidents and things like that, especially if her mental health issues are to the point of hospitalization, that can be a danger, right? So again, that would be something worth making. And then you get, with that documentation, I would then go to my family, who, if I was him, I would then go to my family and say, hey, I know it seems like it's just a blip here, a blip there, whatever it may be, but please notice this beautiful pattern written here, showing all of these incidences, what they're putting up with, everything else. Because beyond the sisters doing the weird thing of, being manipulated into sticking up for her, it's the fact that his family is now blaming him for causing a rift, right? So to me, I think sometimes families don't always listen to each other. Put it that way. So they may be saying, well, you already told me about that time that she slit your tires. I'm not saying that this happened, but yeah. And they're like, yeah, but that happened 3 times. And the family may have not taken it as seriously as they should. Or she calls at 2 a.m. every Wednesday morning. Well, you told me she called on Wednesday. Yeah, but it's every Wednesday, right? So being able to kind of break through that a little bit and get the family back into line, and then be able to go united front to the sisters. If preserving these family relationships is really important, that would be there. The other thing that the girlfriend, or the partner, pardon me, brought up was about the wedding. I love you, partner, I say with tenderness, but you are borrowing trouble, because there's been no proposal, there's no weddings, there's no any of this stuff else. Worry about that tomorrow. Worry about the fact that you've got an ex-girlfriend who is this level of stalkery at this point in time. Let tomorrow fix itself. That would be where I would be. How about you?
The one weird thing that's like, bugging me is the fact that he was in his ex's brother's wedding. Like, if you're trying to distance yourself from someone who is imposing on your life like this, no matter how close you were to the brother, just like, you know, I love you, you're like a brother, but you know the situation, I can't be involved in this thing. Like, just, it feels like he's trying to straddle a line here of being close with the ex's family, but not her. It's giving her really mixed signals too, I think.
Yeah.
You know, because it's like, if you didn't want to have anything to do with me, then why are you hanging out with my family and in my brother's wedding kind of thing?
That was what I was gonna say, is that like, it sucks that he couldn't be in or like, it would suck to say you can't be the best man at your friend's wedding just because his sister is your ex. Like, that's not fair. But also, I agree. I'm really curious to know, like, they were on and off for 10 years, the partner and the ex. It makes a lot of sense that she thinks that this is just another off period, even though he's dating someone else. And I think that, well, I would like to know first from did this partner ever sit down the ex and say, this is not like the other times we broke up. This isn't going to be an on again, off again thing. We are officially done, whether I marry this person I'm with now or not. And I need you to like acknowledge that you understand it. Because I think like sometimes folks, depending on, you know, mental health stuff or like just fixations, there is a sort of misrecognition of cues as being part of the story that they are telling themselves. And sometimes to break through that, it doesn't always work, but sometimes to break through that, you have to say, you're acting like you think this is what's going on, but actually that's not ever going to happen again, no matter what. And being that firm, from the sound of it, I doubt that this partner has done that, because he seems like someone who wants to maintain good relationships through avoidance rather than through direct communication, which I mean, I totally understand. Direct conflict, especially with someone who's like unsettling, is really scary and destabilizing. But yeah, I think that also with the sisters, like, I wonder how much of this is sexism, where these sisters think that because he's a man, he can't be terrorized or he can't be scared, and are like, oh, well, you know, so what? She's calling you. What's she going to do? If she showed up, you could throw her across the room. Like, that's just, that kind of sexism is so toxic to, I mean, to everyone, but especially to men who have been in abusive, whether emotionally or physically abusive relationships, because it's so hard for other people, especially like women, I think, especially women who are close to them, to understand that their feelings of fear should be taken as seriously as if this were one of their other sisters who this was happening to. And I think that, like, yeah, these sisters, despite what they have heard, I do worry that maybe he's not being direct about saying these things about his ex-partner. And why would he want to? Because he was with her for 10 years on and off. No one wants to be like, hey, this person who was a huge part of my life is now terrorizing me and I'm scared of what she's going to do. Like, nobody wants to be in a position to say that. But I think that would be a really important thing to communicate to your sisters, to go to them and be like, I need you. I am frightened by the behavior and I'm concerned that it's going to escalate. And here's what happens and here's how I'm feeling. And it can be really hard to do that. But I think that he needs to be super direct, both with the ex and with her family and with his own family, about like, the things that she's doing are scary, intrusive, and make me concerned for my safety and the health of my relationship. Because until you say that, people don't know. Like, people sometimes don't expect the worst in your relationship, especially if you were with someone for a long time. So I just think, like, there needs to be some extremely direct communication on all fronts. And it has to come from this dude. Like, he's the only one who his family is going to believe, if anyone. He's
and you have to think he's been through this before. If they've been on again and off again for 10 years, this was probably something that could be why he went back, just to stop it. You know what I mean? There's a whole lot there.
Yeah. I wonder a little bit about what the before times were, before the terrorization started, what the before times were, and what the ex presents to the family, because, you know, she's presenting, you know, not that we're all performing or, you know, the classic thing that we do, but I'm sure she's someone with them versus the person she is alone versus the person she is with others. And so we can only construct the narrative based on the facts that we gather on that person. And so I would think if I were to offer advice to the letter writer and to the letter writer's partner as well, is that, you know, I'm a big proponent from always leading from a place of empathy, and the person whose actions you control are your own. And so if, you know, if the ex is not in a place where they're ready to seek help, or they're ready to confront the truth of the situation, the reality, that you can always have the option to find impartial parties to share the burden of a situation with, people who will listen, believe you, and offer actionable advice, because your inner peace is the only way that's going to guide you towards a better solution. So I think, Avery, like you said, you know, if that is moving, if that is sitting down with the family with a list of receipts and saying, this is what's happening to me, because those communication skills are really kind of the only way you can dig yourself out of a bad situation. That, you know, if someone else digs a hole and you accidentally fall into it, you're going to need a grappling hook and a rope and whatever. You can't climb out alone. So
that's a great way of putting it.
Totally.
Well, and
Avery's place.
I love the fact that we're all romance writers, right? And what do? We do the big, oftentimes we do the big dark moment, right? There's the breakup, there's the thing, and then the one partner has to fight for the other partner, and they have to prove that, you know, they have to do all of these things. And I think stuff like this kind of goes to show how there are things that work in fiction and there are things that work in real life to an extent, but there's a line, you know, there's a definite line. It's like, remember when like all the public stuff in books was always happening, where it was a huge public declaration and all those stuffs, and you're just like, oh my God, right? We look at it now, or oh, how cute it is to watch the, you know, the cell phone video of these two strangers flirting at the airport. And then, you know, in a romance book, yeah, you'd be watching the shit out of that. But in real life, you're like, there are boundaries, and boundaries are hard. And so if you already have some mental health issues, sometimes boundaries can be even harder. You add in a 10-year history of on again, off again. And I would also say, not to be that person, but I am that person, that I find it interesting that it is the partner that is writing this and not him. And it may just be, you know, lack of wanting to ask for advice on something like this, you know, in this format. But I always wonder, you know, what's going on the other side. Is he texting back? Is he putting just enough information, just enough hope in there, in at least the ex's mind, to say, hey, this is a possibility? Now, he could be doing that out of maliciousness, could be doing that out of trying to be kind, right? And instead is doing more harm. So I'm really kind of interested to know what's going on that end of things with this letter.
Yeah, well, that was my point about him being the best man at her brother's wedding.
Yeah,
it's like he has a connection to her family. 10 years is a long time, and I have a feeling these people are in their 20s or early 30s, because it feels like a high school, college thing, like, you know, and you sort of grown up with these people in your life, and so he's finding it hard to untether himself from her family and trying to have that family without having to deal with her, where what he really needs to do and say, you guys are awesome, I'm glad I had you in my life, hopefully we can stay in touch, but that's the boundary there. And he hasn't done that. So yeah, she's getting hope probably a bit from that. And yeah, I'd be curious to see whether or not he's answering these 2 a.m. texts as well, or calls. Yeah, showing up. I just saw that she shows up at the door at 2. Wow. Showing up at the door at 2
That's a lot. And you know what? The thing with him being in the wedding is kind of one of the parts that made me feel very small towny, because you can, when you break up in a really small town, you can't avoid them or their families. So those bonds and those relationships tend to stay.
Right. Have any of y'all listened to the podcast Something Was Wrong?
No.
Okay. Let me tell you all about the recent deep dive that I've done where I just spent like 20 hours of my life with people's dysfunctional relationships. A couple days ago, I don't remember
it
how
was not with us. Just
it was not with them.
I was gonna say, you mean outside of this?
Stop spying on me.
It was while I was baking a very elaborate birthday cake. I listened to this podcast called Something Was Wrong. And I think it's 12 seasons now. And some of the seasons are multiple people's stories, but the ones that I listened to are like 10 episodes for each, telling the story of someone's relationship that it turned out was horrible. The person was horrible, but they didn't know it until things had escalated hugely. And now they're going back to like reconstruct the relationship using their perspective, in hindsight, their friends and family's memories, sometimes research that they do with like other people. And what's been so interesting about listening to this, and I'm not saying that this letter is like someone being completely destructive and off their rocker, but it was fascinating to listen to these relationships, like the things that people would do to keep the attention of their partner, who they had basically created an entire other persona to be with and lied to them and done. I mean, some of these people maintained accents for 8 months of a relationship.
Wow.
They made up
commitment.
jobs. Yes, such a commitment. They made up jobs. It was basically like these huge catfish situations where they made up cancer diagnoses, mothers' deaths, all these things. And one of them made up that he was in witness protection and had FBI agents like call and text his girlfriend so that she thought she was being like followed by the people who were trying to murder her. Anyway, it's just these outrageous things.
What?
But yeah,
Oh
I highly recommend season 12, especially is the one with witness protection. But so my point in saying this is that the people who were doing these things, like it's two men in both these years. So the men that were doing these things, like they were putting so much energy into maintaining a lie to maintain a relationship that they like, there was no right or wrong. There was no good or bad. It was just, I have a goal and my goal is to like get this person to be my partner. I don't care about them or how I hurt them or anything, but my goal is like so the only thing I care about that I'm
it's like
willing
by
to
any
do.
means necessary kind of thing.
Exactly. And I think that one of the things that the reason that's reminded me is like, you don't know what the deal is with someone who's like texting you at 2 a.m. or showing up at 2 a.m. It might be like just intrusive and there's not going to be an escalation. But like this person, I'm just saying, could end up lying to her next partner and saying that she's in witness protection and doing all this weird stuff because she has so fixated on the idea of a person that she only cares about what she wants. And I feel like that is why what I took from these episodes, which I know they're very extreme, but like that's why I think sometimes you don't want to dismiss these things that other people might think are small, because they will come back in, like if a person thinks that they can do one small thing to you, then what is to prevent them from thinking that they can raise the stakes, raise the scale, all these things. And I think that if someone had, like almost always people who are like this have mental health issues, whether it's like antisocial personality disorder in the case of one of these, or like narcissism, or it could be anything, but I'm not saying that stalking is a symptom of mental health issues, period. But anyway, I would be really cautious about dismissing these kind of symptoms, even if they don't feel like they've reached the point yet of like involving the police to the people involved. But like, yeah, keeping records of all these things, I was just horrified and totally blown, like my mind was blown by the fact that there are people out there who do these things. And I myself have fallen victim to that kind of like folks like that. And it's like, if you're not a person who would ever do those things to someone, it never occurs to you that anyone's doing them to you.
Like it never, that are really good at it do it step by step. Even like to a minor extent, any bad breakup you have after a bad relationship, you kind of look back and you're like, why didn't I see it then? you know, because you've got to kind of put those pieces together, which kind of makes me think with this letter, another interesting thing on the fact that it is the partner that is writing this in and not the boyfriend, is the fact that they had this on and off again relationship for 10 years, right? Maybe it's been like this the whole time.
That's what I was saying. Yeah.
Maybe the partner has been in this, exactly, Zio. Maybe the partner has been in this for so long that they don't see it at all.
They don't see it.
So
yeah.
I wonder if the partner has talked to the boyfriend about this, because they may be going, well, that's just the way my ex is. It's normal, and may not be seeing that.
He knows it's abnormal enough to say that he's quote unquote cut these women out of his life, which is, I guess, is his sisters and the ex. But I think he's treating it as if, oh, my ex is just so weird, instead of this is a serious problem. Yeah. You know what I mean? Or it makes you uncomfortable, so I'm going to do this thing. Like there's still, it's just not enough.
There's stuff.
So
there's more stuff.
There's way more stuff. Yeah. Well, I hope that the letter writer can find a way to sit down with the partner and maybe the partner's family and say, and lay out, like you said, receipts. This is what's been happening. I don't think you understand how serious this is. This isn't just jealousy or, you know, we're going to go back to the way things were. We are committed to each other now. And so this is, you know, this is what you guys need to know.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I think like us as authors, I'm curious a little bit about, you know, like we were talking about constructing a narrative, you know, and we're all constructing a narrative every day, and we're comparing the story we're telling ourselves to the story that other people are telling. And for some reason, this letter keeps making me think of Muriel's wedding and the movie and My Best Friend's Wedding, also wedding related, you know, the letter writer talking about the wedding. And it's just making me think of that, these heroines and heroes that we kind of watched in the 90s, and I'm not saying those movies normalize that behavior, because I think we watch it now with a modern sensibility and we can say like, okay, like maybe they're the villain of their own story and they learn that and they change and they come to a new conclusion. But I do think, and one of the themes in Never Been Kissed is that we internalize those narrative structures, and then we, a lot of us who love movies and stuff like that will try to regurgitate those into our lives. And so, you know, I can't say this for certain, but as someone who has struggled with, you know, mental illness before, that there sometimes can be a blurring of where reality and fiction comes. And so that's, you know, kind of why I was saying leading with empathy, right? Because if this person is having trouble differentiating their day-to-day life from the story they told themselves, well, we're on again, off again. So on is right in reach and happy ending is right beyond that. Then, you know, that's almost a rewiring that has to happen. I have to rechart my story. That's like us when we're writing a book and we got to go back and we're like, well, this plot point, nope, gotta go. Like, I mean, 10 years is a long time to tell yourself a story.
Yeah.
But people do it for their whole lives.
They do it for their
whole lives. You know, think of the people that you know that I don't know. I always think of like bad parents. You know, bad parents will swear up and down a lot of times that they were the best possible parents. Not saying they weren't doing the best job they could in those circumstances, but, you know, and then like you see it from the kid's perspective and you're like, oh yeah, after many, many years of therapy, you figure that out. So yeah, I think we don't like to think of ourselves as the bad guy. So I think a lot of folks are willing to tell themselves stories for a really long time.
I think we're also, as people, willing to adapt to others when we're in a romantic or any kind of intimate relationship. Like I even, Roan, one of the things that you were talking about made me think of, I was in a relationship, it was my first serious relationship, and my partner at the time was really interested in healing crystals and meditation. And I had never once experienced an interest in meditation or healing crystals. And suddenly I was wearing like a rose quartz necklace. And I was like doing this stuff that like, in hindsight, I'm like, I was adopting behaviors because I wanted to be accepted and I wanted the good feelings to continue. And this is in a completely different realm than that. But we do. We do. We don't know. And especially like if it's 10 years, maybe they started dating when they were early teenagers or something like that. You're so impressionable at that time that you don't know that that's wrong. You don't know that you're hurting people. So
Yeah, I think that's so true. And that like the I wonder if the reason that it was the partner who's the non-stalked one who's writing the letter is because as we've all said, like the person thinks that they're going to get back together, and like the girlfriend or the letter writer is able to say to from the outside say, no matter what entanglement you had, like the 10 years of probably moving closer to be like your ex so that her behaviors don't seem as bizarre or extreme to you. Also, like that person has the 10 years of all the good stuff too, the intimacy, the shared memories. And I think like when you're dealing with a partner or a friend or a romantic partner or someone who's like emotionally abusive in some way, it's like the first signs of that always read as outliers to their personality, right? It's like these are exceptions. And it takes a lot of times of that person showing you the exceptions before your brain like clicks over to being like, oh, these are not the exception. These are a core part of that person's personality. And maybe the dude just isn't there yet. Whereas the person writing the letter can from the outside be like, this is unhealthy. This makes me feel scared and unconfident, etc. But he's just kind of like we've all said, so in it that he can't see it. And it might be a period of mourning for him of having to be like, I'm going to have to let go of all the positive memories and feelings that I have with this person if I let go of the negative things too. And I just think like sometimes that takes a mental shift, like a rewiring, like you were saying, Timothy, where you have to separate, like consciously separate the good memories that you want to save, almost like a scrapbook, and like put them away and say, the bad stuff can't touch these things. I don't have to give up my memories. But then like maybe he's going to have to mourn for a relationship that was really foundational for him. And like, just because someone's being shitty to you doesn't mean you don't still love them, doesn't mean you don't still care about them, and doesn't mean that you don't still have something invested in them loving you. And I think that can be the hardest part, is like the second that person stops calling or showing up at 2 a.m, is the partner going to be like, oh, now she doesn't care anymore? And is that going to feel sad? And does he want to avoid that feeling? Like this, I just think it's so understandable, all the pieces, but like, just because, I mean, you still have to get out of it. Otherwise your whole life is just going to be this like slosh of
back and forth
cycle. And you have to wonder if the families, especially his family, and maybe even hers, are like, these kids have been together forever. We know they're gonna get married. This is, you know what I mean? There could be that familial sort of like, not pressure, but just sort of expectation that they've been together for so long, and mom's already, got the grandkids' names picked out and all that kind of, you know what I mean? Like sometimes parents can put a lot of pressure on their kids when it comes to stuff like this. Yeah, there's a lot here. So that's why I thought it would be a good letter.
It was a great letter. It was another one of the sneak up letters where you think it's just going to be like, very simple.
Yeah.
And then,
bam,
half an hour later, we're like, what the hell? And another thing. So, yeah.
Well, our chat topic this week is a little bit related because we were talking about this guy getting away from the situation and moving. And I wonder if any of you have ever lived alone. And if you have, did you prefer it? How old were you when you first lived alone? If you ever did, like, you're all nodding.
Yeah. I have not lived alone for a very long time, decades. So for me, I loved living by myself. I very much enjoyed it, and never had any problems with it. And now, like, I come home, and if I am the only one, like, home, not in my house, it's like every light is on. The door lock is checked like 5 times. I live in the suburbs. Okay. I don't need that. Like when we went to that signing in North Carolina and I left early and drove home, there were no dogs. There were no kids. There was no husband. There was nothing. I was the only living being, as far as I knew, in my house. And I probably checked the shower, checked the locks, locked the bedroom door, slept with the lights on, all of that stuff. And it is just, honest to God, partly the writer brain, that always goes, ooh, what would happen next? Could you imagine if that happened? The curse of that. I would love to not have an imagination some days. And then just the fact that it literally has been next month 22 years since I have lived by myself, and that's a really freaking long time. Wow. So yeah, I want to go on vacation by myself though.
Oh,
my dream. It's my dream. Slightly different topic, but yes. How about you guys?
Yeah, I currently live alone, and I have lived alone my whole life, except for, I mean, I had roommates in college, and I've like done month-long stays where I like sublet a room in a house, things like that. But I have, other than that, always lived alone. I love living alone. I love my space. I love being able to like set things up the way I like, have things where I want them, have total control over my environment. That said,
that's lovely.
Yeah, it's the best. And I've never like
great jealousy for that.
Oh yeah, it's so great. You can watch whatever you want. It's just like you can eat whatever you want. You don't have to take anyone else's feelings or preferences into consideration, which is like great. But my girlfriend is moving in with me in July, and I'm so excited. When we've started dating, one of the things that I said to her was like, we were talking about like, what are you scared about this relationship? And I was like, I am scared that I am like a selfish, I only want to do what I want. And like, I'm not used to having to take someone else's stuff into account. And I was like very clear about that from the beginning. But then it's like, we are so excited to live together because she actually feels exactly the same way I do, which you would think would be like kind of butting heads. Like we both want to have things the way we each want them, but it's actually great because we like subdivide things. We love doing things together. So we're like excited to like redecorate together and do all this stuff together. So I think it'll be a huge adjustment for me. She's lived with people many times before, but I'm kind of like, I feel like that person, I mean, I just turned 40, so I'm like quite an adult. And I feel like I'm going to have to be like, so is it normal that like blah, 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 our toothbrushes in the bathroom? Like, is that how you're supposed to do it? Even though I know there's no supposed to, because I just feel so like unprepared for, I don't know. I don't share. Yeah.
You're going to have to go through the whole, like, I notice you put the new toilet roll on top of the empty toilet roll instead of changing it out.
Oh my God.
Talk to me about that.
Yes.
Talk to me about that. Tell me your thought process. Have fun.
I will.
That's definitely a big transition. I lived alone in college in an apartment, and I think that was the first and only time so far that I lived alone. And I think I loved it too. I think I loved the independence of that, of having a space that I could come back to, knowing that I didn't have to ever be on. I didn't have to be a social creature when I came back to that place. I could be a social creature outside the door, but I could be a lone gremlin inside at any point in time. One of the things that I do love though about living with other people is the feeling of someone on the other side of the wall, if that makes sense, of having like a little private space to go into while I'm working or I'm taking a phone call or whatever, and just knowing that there's a person on the other side of the wall because that energy permeates in a space, and that's that energy is kind of reminds me of home. Like that's the feeling that I love about home. Like I know that home is also inside, but I know that home is also other people, and so having that environment is nice.
Yeah, no, I have to agree. It is nice to have people on the other side of the wall. I've lived in apartments, we live in a row home, a South Philadelphia row home, where we share 2 walls, with our neighbors. And over the past couple of months, the houses on either side have sold. And so for a little while, they've been empty, so which is very weird. So you're used to hearing like people go down the steps or whatever. It's very weird. So it's nice having neighbors now. But I think the weirdest sort of I lived alone, but not really situation was when I moved to London and I was living in a house share in Croydon. And it was like a straight up house share where they rent by the room. not like we all went on the house together. So like they put an ad out for the room and I needed a room in the city. And so I answered the ad and I took the room, and I didn't know any of the people that lived there, and they were all different ages, all from different places. I left there with like the weirdest accent you'd ever hear. But no, I did, because like my roommates were from New Zealand, Australia, and Nigeria, and somewhere else. And I just came home sounding like, I don't even know. But it was weird because I didn't really hang out with them. We didn't socialize, but just knowing that they were in the house sort of made me feel a little safer, or like, I don't know. It was a weird sensation. So I was by myself. My room was my room, it was my space. But yeah, it was like I had like a community sort of there, you know. But yeah, I don't know. I think I like my independence. Mr. X and I, it's just the two of us, and we sort of like do our things together. But you know, now that he's back in the office a couple days a week, I get to be in the house alone for a few days a week. And like that, after 2 years of not having that and then going back to that, it was like a weird adjustment period for me. But now I'm like, yeah, I get to like, you know, do my own thing.
I love that you said that, because it is just getting to be the worst time of the year for any parent who works at home, because school's about to get out. My kids keep telling me, they're like counting down. And I'm like, it's the worst time of the year. So I go from working from home by myself all day to having my children, who I love, who are old enough that I don't have to like, it's not like a caregiving situation at this point in time, but they also love to come and chat a lot. Mm-hmm. And I love them. And my office has a door, but that means nothing. And then you add in the fact that if I lock the door or I tell them to get out, then I'm being a bad mom. But so I try not to do that. But what do they bring up every damn time? Oh my God, mom's working. Get out. Do you see me typing? And I'm like, so again, there you go. It's your perspective. But yes, solidarity, high five with all the work from home parents who are getting ready for summer.
Brutal.
So Zio, I want to know, did you get new neighbors? Folks have moved in
we did. And we had, when everything got locked down, we started a neighbor chat in WhatsApp so that we could like share toilet paper and stuff, like, you know, like I'm making a market run, who needs sugar, that kind of thing. And it kept going. So now it's like anything that happens, you know, we throw it into the neighbor chat. So I'm like because the neighbor who was next door was the one who started it, and she moved. So now I'm the captain or whatever.
You're in
so charge. The new neighbors, I go meet them and tell them about the chat and see if they want to join it and that kind of thing. So I'm the greeting committee now.
Oh, I love that.
I do agree though, Zio, that like, I think especially maybe not so much when there like is space between houses, but so Zio and I both live in Philadelphia, but like when you are in a city and there are empty houses on your street, it feels off vibe. Like it's very,
it does.
I think it just feels a little bit odd.
All those like, little noises that you get used to, just background noise, and then it's like just silence, and you're like, you know, it's really
hear my body hit the ground.
Yeah, exactly.
See, and this is why I need to make you guys come out and visit me, where like you actually see like the stars in the sky, and it's like super quiet, and like you get scared walking from our outbuilding.
You have an outbuilding? What's your outbuilding? I love outbuildings.
The people that we bought the house from a couple of years ago, the husband restored antique cars, which was amazing. Oh my God.
Wow.
But they built like this huge garage basically, and it literally can be converted into a home. It's massive. It was enough they had 6 cars in there.
Wow.
6 vehicles and a lift and like it's a massive building. So
do you ever lift? Do you stand on the lift and have people lift you up and down?
Well, we had a guy come out to give us a quote for doing drywall, and it was in the outbuilding, and he saw the lift and he's like, what do you guys do with this? I'm like, nothing. Do you want it? And he's like, really? He's like, how much? I'm like, if you can take it out, it's all yours. So so there's some shade tree mechanic in our area who now has a lift and is very happy. So no, I never touched it otherwise. But now that garage has like the outbuilding has a batting cage and a gym in it.
Oh my God.
Yeah, it's big enough for a batting cage. It's obnoxious. And one of my so when we moved in, It's a weird street. It's like a dead end, and there's like each house has big lots. And we hadn't met all of our neighbors yet, and we built the batting cage, right? And it was like one of the episodes of Amazing Race where the couple's going to break up, right? Because they're yelling at each other as they're building the thing. So everybody's yelling at each other as we're getting the whole thing put together, and then moved into the garage because it's massive. And then like a couple of weeks later, I'm talking to one of my neighbors. They were like, yeah, we really enjoyed watching you guys with your batting cage. And I was like, great. That's just the first impression you want to
You
make.
guys were in their neighbor chat. Did you see the couple that built the batting cage?
I'm sure we were. Did you see them yell at each other?
Yeah. They had a pool going.
Yeah.
Timothy, where are you? Where do you live? You're in Pennsylvania, aren't you?
So I split time right now. So I had plans to move post grad. So I don't even know how many years it's been post grad now, because COVID time has been wild. My partner lives in Pennsylvania and I live in New Jersey. So I spend most of my time in the Lehigh Valley, Pennsylvania, and then I spend a little bit of time at home for family functions, stuff like that. So hopefully we will be packing up and going to DC soon, but we're not certain yet.
Yeah, you'll be in my neck of the woods.
Yeah, I'm very excited about it.
Yay, awesome. Oh, well, now that I know I'll be able to stalk Timothy, hopefully sometime soon. It seems like a lovely little, we've brought us all full circle here. So I just want to say, Timothy, thank you so much for being with us today. We absolutely adored having you. Please tell everybody where they can find you online and give us another shot at that beautiful book, Never Been Kissed.
Yeah, of course. So thank you again for having me. This was wonderful. I love chatting with you all. Never Been Kissed, You're Mean When Matthew Prince, Never Been Kissed out now. You're Mean When Matthew Prince out in October. Very close. Which means
you can pre-order it.
Yes, please pre-order it. Very close to Roan's The Holiday Trap. Yes,
I was gonna say.
Yes. So I'm sure we'll be seeing a lot of each other in the holiday times. And you can find me online, timothyjanovsky.com. There's a newsletter sign up there if you want to keep in touch with me. And then I'm at Timothy Janovsky on Instagram, Twitter, and you can find me dancing sometimes on TikTok, but don't judge me too harshly.
I love that. Okay. And for the listeners who spell like I do, please spell Janovsky.
Of course. It's Janovsky. Perfect.
Oh, you guys, thank you so much for hanging out with us and Timothy today. We absolutely loved having you. And as much as we love giving advice to perfect strangers, we would love to give advice to you specifically. So you should send us an email to advice@dearromancewriter.com, fill out our anonymous form, send us a DM on social media. We would love to give you some questionable advice. In the meantime, thank you so much for joining us. This here trio of happily ever after enthusiasts always has a good time with you. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
See you next time.
Bye.
Thank you so much for subscribing to Dear Romance Writer. Remember to keep sending in those letters at dearromancewriter.com. We can't wait to tell you what to do. Dear Romance Writer is part of the Frolic Podcast Network. Find more podcasts you'll love, frolic.media/podcasts.